Okay, let's start over. Hi.
Takes care of the nervousness.
My name is Karen Wilm, and I'm from Prentice, Wisconsin. So it's a beautiful day, is it not?
It is.
Yes. And every day is a day to be glad in the Lord, for He has brought us to life. I'd like to share a parable with you in Luke that I find meaningful with the talk that we're going to give today on forgiveness. Let me tell you, it's in Luke. It's 7 verses 36 through 50. A sinful woman forgiven. One of the Pharisees asked him to eat with them, and he went into the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. And behold, a woman of the city who was a sinner, when she learned that he was reclining at the table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of ointment. And standing behind him at his feet, weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hair of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with the ointment. Now the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, and he said to himself, "If this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what sort of woman this is, and who is touching him. For she is a sinner." And Jesus answering said to him, "Simon, I have something to say to you." And he answered, "Say it, teacher." A certain moneylender had 2 debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 50. And when they could not pay, he canceled the debt of both. Now which of them will love him more? Simon answered, "The one, I suppose, whom he canceled the larger debt." And he said to him, who have judged rightly." Then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I entered your house, you gave me no water for my feet, but she has wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not ceased to kiss my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore, I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who is forgiven little loves little." And he said to her, "Your sins are forgiven." Then those who were at the table with him began to say among themselves, "Who is this who even forgives sins?" And he said to the woman, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace."
Yeah.
I was born in Tell City, Indiana, and at a very young age, I don't even think I was walking yet, came to live in Medford, Wisconsin. The first thing I felt when I was aware of my surroundings was fear. Fear of what was in the atmosphere of our home. It was a dysfunctional family, at the very least. My brother and I, my sister wasn't born yet, but my brother and I witnessed a lot of abuse. My father tried to shield us from it. I would hear screams, cries behind closed doors. I remember the terror. I remember how I felt. And it was hard. I knew my mom was getting beat. But as a child that young, I didn't understand. Because everything was happening behind closed doors. But I felt the fear. I felt like I was walking on eggshells. And one day my brother and I were outside playing in the sandbox, and my mom come barreling out of the house, just screaming and holding her back. And I knew when she called our names, I knew that Mom was leaving, and we got in the car, and my dad chased the car all the way out driveway, and we left. We left and I cried and I didn't understand. In hindsight, I do understand now. Because moving forward, I was in a lot of abusive relationships because of that. Somewhere along the line, somewhere clicked in my head that that was acceptable. That was the way I was supposed to be treated and allowed myself to be treated as such throughout life. Moving forward to school, I found out I had a back disability called scoliosis. And I had to wear a brace for at least a year from here to my midsection. And I got made fun of when I went to school. I was called Framework and Company, and everybody had a name pick on me about that brace. So one day I just took it off and threw it away, and my mom just said, well, the doctor says it's not going to get any better, but it's not going to get any worse. So I learned to live with my scoliosis, but I was picked on a lot in school. School was really hard. I started to fail some classes, couldn't make friends, didn't have any friends except the friends that I did have were the wrong ones. So back in school, that's where my drug started. My drug use started is in high school. And my mom eventually divorced my dad and married another man. I was about 10, I think. And he was abusive too, except he wasn't abusive to my mother. He was abusive to me. I was sexually abused. And I was placed in foster homes. 3 different foster homes because I kept running away from them. I didn't understand why I had to be in foster care and my father could be at home. And I was scared. I knew my sister and my brother were still there, and I was scared of what he would do to them. I thought that there was going to be an investigation and that he would be put in jail, and he wasn't. He just got his name put on the sex offenders registry for the rest of his life. So I eventually left the last foster home and got married, and I was 19 when I got married. And after that, I started drinking more and more and trying to escape the memories and horrors of the abuse I suffered at the hands of my parents. I was unforgiving. I mean, more so of my mother than I did my fathers, both my fathers, because she didn't protect me. She didn't believe me, and she didn't protect me, so I just continued to drink. It's how my mother handled her problems. My mom was an alcoholic. She doesn't drink to this day, but she was an alcoholic for most of our young lives. And I never thought I would become an alcoholic. I became an alcoholic. And I also became a drug user eventually. I got married a second time after my first marriage didn't work. And I continued on with my drinking. And I think the first time that I ever got in trouble with drinking was when I got into an argument with my husband at the time, and we both were arrested for disorderly conduct. Although I was the one with more of the bruises than he did, you know. It didn't matter. We were both entangled in a fight, and we were arrested. And I sat about 30 days in jail. And then came husband number 3. And husband number 3 was the father of my 2 children, and I have 3 altogether, but the two younger children were from my 3rd marriage. And I just continued on in my alcoholism and drug use, and I was getting desperate financially. I was getting desperate, so I would lie, I would cheat, I would steal, I would sell myself. I'm sorry.
God's with you.
I married an abusive man. I thought that I was self-punishing myself. The abuse is what I was used to. I didn't know any other way. My dad hurt my mom, and I saw how she dealt with it, and I dealt with it the same way. I didn't think I was going to cry, sorry.
Let it go.
You're
Quite all right.
You're fine.
But I was so far into my drug habits that I would steal from friends. Credit card fraud. I went to jail several times for drug driving. I almost killed myself and somebody else. 4 times, 4-time drunk driver. The last drunk driving charge I had, I was this close to prison. This close. And I spent most of my adult life on probation. And the last husband I had took me into the meth world. And I started losing my health. I got so thin, I lost about 120 pounds. I lost my teeth. And I have scars on my body where I pick, because I was so far into that meth world. And it was the grace of God that I went to jail. The 3rd time I went to jail, It was for 120 days. And I didn't go, when I got out, I didn't go back. I found a church. I found a church. I found Brian Cole in the newspaper, and I called him up, and I wanted to see the church. I wanted to talk to him more. I wanted to know. And here I found out that he was a former ex-con. And I'm like, wow, you know, because I was married to one, and I wanted to understand, and I wanted to save my husband. I wanted to save myself too, but I wanted to save him too. But I only ended up saving myself in the end. Dan was a coke addict, a methamphetamine addict, and he smoked weed, and I did all that. Alcohol. And one time we got arrested because he decided he was going to go scrapping, and he went on properties and stole items off of people's property he thought was junk, but apparently it wasn't, and we got it for trespassing and stealing goods. And Lord has blessed me in so many ways. You know, all the struggles that I went through was to teach me forgiveness. I had to forgive my abusers. You know, I had to forgive my father, my stepfather. I had to forgive my last husband. And I'm working on forgiveness for the man I almost married. And I did not. But Jesus has been good. Jesus is merciful. And I didn't know how merciful until I was in jail one time. It was for the third drunk driving charge, and there were these Christian ladies there from a church out of Thorpe, Wisconsin. And I started going to these women's Bibles groups that they would have like once a week at the jail. And they were like a beam of sunshine coming in there, and they were just loving on us and going through the Bible with us and teaching us. And I came out of jail with the Bible that one of the ladies gave me. And that's what really started me. I was in 2013 or 14. When I got out of jail, I started looking for that church right away. And like I said, I found one in the newspaper, and eventually I met Marcia. And that was awesome because God placed her in my life at the perfect time, because I went through the Almond Tree Ministry program with her. And I completed it. And now I'm working on the God and Angry book. But they're both from the Almond Tree Ministry program, which is an awesome program. But what's even more awesome is God's in that program. God is not only in that program, but he was in the people and the mentors and the pastors and that were in my life at the time. Currently I don't have a church, a home church. Currently I don't have fellowship. and I don't have many friends to lift me up except for Marcia here. She's a phone call away. And my sissy. I should use the phone more, right, Marcia?
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. But I don't know what time is it.
I don't know what time it is either. Give her-
Okay. Well, the drug world that I was in, I prayed my way out of that through all the jail stints. I had to pray. And I kept going back. I couldn't understand, you know. I didn't have an upbringing with Christ. I didn't have a church. My mom and dad went to a Methodist church, and all I did was sit in there and kick the pews. The minister there was really, really deep into this fire and brimstone preaching, and I was scared. I was scared of God. I spent my whole life running from God, and that even scared me more. And so I feel a little bit like Jonah, who got swallowed by the whale, you know. He was pointing me in a direction. I was going the opposite way. I didn't go where God needed me to go. But he is awesome, and he has placed me in the place where I am now. Okay. So, another part's my story. If anybody has any questions for me, I would love it, because I went through my life story kind of fast and I've got time. Anybody, any question you have, you can ask me at any time and I will answer you. But I went through my life kind of quickly, and I don't remember a lot of stuff. I don't remember dates exactly. I don't remember times exactly when these occurrences were. I could give you a figure of an approximate, but I feel like I'm rambling, sorry. Yes?
Can you tell a little bit more about how you came to forgive your parents for the abuse and the physical abuse you experienced and the emotional abuse and the abandonment from your mother? How did you get to a place that you could actually forgive them, and did you have an interaction with them?
That's a good question, because yes, I'll answer the last question first. I did have, well, I wrote a letter to my stepfather. I forgave him, and I wanted him so much, because he's right now he's currently sick with cancer. But I want him to know Jesus. That's how much I love my stepfather. The man that abused me sexually as a child, I do not want him not to know Jesus. He's got to know Jesus. And I pray for that daily, you know. And for my mother, it was a little harder to forgive her than it was my father's. It was a sense of betrayal. I thought that, you know, when I told her she would believe me and protect me, she did not do that. And I understand why later in life, but I didn't understand at the time. So I came to a place of forgiveness with them. With my stepfather, it was after my first daughter was born. That was in 1990. So in 1991, I forgave my stepfather. I had, you know, just summed it up as he's a sick man and something must have happened to him when he was young. I try to think about why people are the way they are. So I have a better understanding, and I can feel some sense of, I don't know yes, sanity. The abandonment issues I still suffer today. The abandonment issues are a sense of loneliness. I suffer with loneliness quite a bit, but the abandonment was really hard because it ruined any other relationships I've had. I clung to relationships with such tenacity. And the bad men in my life, I hung on to them even harder. The worse they were, the better it was for me. I was that sick in my head and twisted in my head to think that that was normal. I witnessed it with my mother and father. I thought it was normal. And I don't even know how old I was, but I don't think I was speaking, yet. Or I just couldn't talk. But now, I came to a forgiveness for both my parents. My dad, my biological father, I still have to come to a place of forgiveness there. I'm having a hard time forgiving myself. I was bitter. I had a lot of resentments. I was angry. I was self-centered. I was self-absorbed. I was a very greedy and very malicious person. My dad made it okay, for me to get abused and to abuse it. And
Also, may I add that in the elementary, one of the things they talk about is forgiveness. And so what I did with Karen was I had her write to everybody that hurt her, write a letter to help with forgiveness on her part, and explain to her that you don't have to have a relationship with that person. You don't have to talk to them, and you don't have to actually send out that letter to somebody. And what we did is we had a little burn party in the parking lot of the church. And we burnt some letters. And it helps with closure and it helped her forgive some people that she needed to forgive. Even though, because some of them she had a no contact order, so you can't obviously send it in there. But it's just one of the things that I added with it when we did the elementary was to give her closure is we worked on forgiveness. So we worked on that chapter for longer than a week. But yeah, that was something we did.
Yes, and you just reminded me when you said letters. Bless you. I had to write a letter to my grandbaby. Oh, God. My youngest daughter, Trista, had an abortion, and I struggled with that. Oh, my God. I'm pro-life. And this is my own flesh and blood. My daughter was going to have a baby. I was so excited. But I found out she was going to terminate that abortion and have an abortion, and I did everything I could to try and stop her and change her mind. Told her how I felt, what I believed. Matthew did the same thing. In fact, he went so far, my son Matthew, went so far as not to even drive her to the clinic. He said he was just not going to do it. So she drove herself to the clinic. But I wrote a letter to my little baby, grandbaby. And I folded it up for closure. And I had my social worker take me down to a bridge-covered river, you know. It was right off the bridge. And I tossed the letter into the river and watched it as it floated downstream. And I cried.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the hardest things for me to come to grips with, in forgiveness. One of the hardest, because I lost my grandbaby. And I've never suffered a loss like that. I know that one day I will see that baby again. When I die and I go to heaven, God, I had a hard time with forgiveness with God for myself. I had a hard time forgiving myself. So I still was holding a lot of bitterness and resentments and stuff like that because I felt dirty. The abuse made me feel dirty. I felt unclean. And I was very promiscuous. I dressed that way because I felt dirty, you know. So I sold myself short. But I came to God and I asked him for forgiveness, not only for the perpetrators in my life, but for myself. Because if I couldn't forgive myself, I wouldn't be able to forgive others. Because all that resentment and pain and bitterness and grief is all there still. I hope and pray that you get the message through my story that I'm telling you, because it's very important for forgiveness. And I have a hard time with forgiveness and mercy because I don't know if there's a difference. But I believe that forgiveness brings on mercy and grace.
Yeah. And there was a purpose I picked Karen because I knew she not only is she works on forgiveness now, but she has forgiven so many people, and I think that says something, that it can be an ongoing issue, that you're always going to be forgiving, trying to forgive somebody every time. You know, your whole life you're gonna have somebody you need to forgive, and so it's an ongoing process. And I think that.
Yes.
Have you been able to, and this is a hard one, have you been able to see how God brings all that together to make you and work in your life to the way he wants you to become, and to be in the process of growing closer to him?
God has made me strong and resilient, and I persevere through a lot of things. And if I can do that, I can do anything. You know, God has given me the ability. It is his perseverance, his strength, and his mercy and grace that has got me to that point. I wouldn't be here talking to you today if I didn't know that about God,
Yeah.
about forgiveness.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could get forgiven. I mean, here I was, a drug user, an alcoholic, an abused woman, a woman who abused, a woman who lied, a woman who cheated, a woman who stole money, a woman who prostituted herself. Well, I wouldn't say prostituted myself because I never received, it was for drugs. It wasn't for money. I mean, I was just trading my body for more fix, you know. So I came to God with all that. There's still things that I need to come to God for, because there are things that even to this day at age 56, I will get a memory. Something will trigger a memory, and it'll be fresh. Something that I have forgotten in the past. So it's ongoing for me. It's an ongoing process for...
And that's where she has my telephone number.
Yes. I have Marcia's telephone number. Without God and without the placing of Marcia and Brian and a lot of other people, but mostly Marcia and Brian, I wouldn't be here speaking. You know, the Almond Tree program for anybody who is addicted to drugs is it's a perfect program. It's God-based, and God pretty much runs the program.
I want to say too, and it's kind of a push for that program, even if you've been in recovery for a while,
Mm-hmm.
It
the
still
Almond
helps.
Tree will still
Yeah.
walk you through a lot of stuff, and even no matter how long you are, it'll bring you to a more recognition of yourself and
Yeah.
who you are.
Yeah. Yes, that's
Yep.
absolutely true.
And I had to go through that Almond Tree program more than once because I relapsed. I've relapsed since I became a Christian. That I won't lie about, because when I relapse, I get disappointed in myself, and then I fear disappointment from others. But it's easier for me to take the guff from others than it is to keep the lie going. So, yeah, I've fallen back into the drug world on and off, you know. The one time I relapsed, that was my fourth drunk driving. That was after, I had that after the Almond Tree program. That happened after.
And I remember it took her 2 weeks to call me from chick.
Yeah, 2 weeks it took me to make that phone call. I was struggling with it.
She actually thought that I was going to give her an earful.
Was she, I was scared of her. Because she's a no holds barred kind of woman.
And for me it was, well, you know, okay, you did this, so how are we going to prevent this from happening again? And because of that, all I remember is her just crying on the phone, you forgive me, and I said, it's not about, for me, it had nothing to do with that, it's how can we stop you from doing it again?
Yes.
Let's make a plan. What are you gonna do when you get out? What are you gonna, and moving forward, and I think it helped
Yeah.
her.
She gave me the
Forgive
courage
herself.
to forgive yeah, she gave me the courage to forgive myself. Is basically, yes, hi, Shelley.
I was just wondering, how do you keep yourself from relapsing now? I mean, is it through a lot of prayer, or you, I know you have Marshall, but
I have to pray and I have to make a phone call. I just can't, if I'm silent, there's something going on, you know?
Yeah.
But I gotta make that phone call. And but I pray first. That's the first thing I do. Then I talk to somebody.
is that really hard to do though? I mean, sometimes
Yes,
you look like a flush and
I wake up in night sweats still, you know? And Marcia and I were just discussing earlier about meth dreams.
Yeah,
I get meth dreams.
yeah,
So it's a struggle. I wake up in a sweat. I thought it was just because of my menopause. But it's not.
It might be that too.
Oh, I love you ladies when you ask me questions. I just love it because it makes it so much easier for me to talk.
What's a meth dream?
A meth dream? Marcia, can you explain this? Help me out.
It's like you dream of using, and you can literally taste.
Crazy.
You can taste it in your
and
mouth.
You can taste it in your mouth. You can crave it. You wake up and you're sweating, and you can literally wake up and taste it in your mouth. And so when you wake up from the dream of smoking whatever you're smoking, you actually taste it. And so I still have those dreams every once in a while, and it can be not just meth but alcohol. You can have dreams like that of drinking alcohol and waking up and all that stuff. So
So do you think that's like spiritual warfare?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Spiritual warfare. Oh, I'm sorry. Hi.
No, go ahead, finish your thought.
I was gonna go into spiritual warfare, but no. Go ahead. I want to answer your question.
I want to hear your idea of spiritual warfare first.
Oh, my spiritual warfare. Is it almost time to cut?
yeah.
Spiritual warfare is the war not of mankind but of the spirits of the help me out
It's
here.
God's work.
Yeah. Yes.
God's the one that fights, and you ask God to help you.
So to end this up, I would like to say thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. And God bless you all.